Hey, hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to a fresh episode of AWS on Air. And now we are going to talk about a very special service called Textract. With me, I have Seema and Rahul, and I'm Suman, a principal developer advocate with Amazon EFS. So before we get started, let's have some brief introduction. So why don't you introduce yourself, Seema and Rahul? Maybe we'll start with Seema.
Thank you, Suman. Hello, everyone. I am Seema Ramdev, and I'm currently working as a developer advocate with Amazon Alexa. Today, we are excited to talk with Rahul Gupta.
Thank you, Suman and Seema. My name is Rahul Gupta, and I'm a principal product management leader within the Amazon Textract team that is part of the broader machine learning division here at AWS. Thank you both for having me on the show.
Excellent. So, I'm guessing that we are going to have a good discussion around machine learning because these two things are super exciting, all based on our AI-based services. So, before we get started, Rahul, why don't you just explain a bit about Textract for our viewers who are new to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So Amazon Textract is a purpose-built offering from AWS that is focused on what customers typically refer to as intelligent document processing. So Suman, document-based business process workflows are everywhere. And think of them as the middleware of how business processes and transactions occur in many of our customers' environments today. Let me give you an example. Think about the last time you maybe had to refinance your home or apply for an auto loan, and think about all the paperwork, the pay stubs, the bank statements, the tax returns. Now imagine you're one of our customers who are the top mortgage lenders in their space globally, and you have to process not one, but millions of these applications, which means billions and billions of pages that, by the way, are mission critical to your business. Well, that's where Textract comes in. Textract leverages the power of AI and machine learning to help customers easily and quickly extract text, additional insights from documents, so that they can go about automating their document based business processes instead of relying on manual reviews, which we all know are tedious, expensive, and difficult to scale. With Textract, customers can better automate these processes to make business decisions faster and delight their end customers in turn, all without having to acquire any machine learning expertise of their own, because AWS does all of the AI ML related heavy lifting behind the scenes on behalf of our customers.
Yeah.
Well, this is super interesting. Tell us about the new query feature and what does it help customers do now that they couldn't do before?
Absolutely. So the queries feature is the latest innovation from Amazon Textract that helps customers easily extract information from virtually any kind of scanned document. Could be an image or a PDF, could be a pay stub, loan application, or even a vaccine card by specifying the data points they would like to extract through natural language questions or queries. In response to which, Textract simply provides the most appropriate answer based on real-time analysis and understanding of the document. The easiest way to think about this is just like you can pose natural language questions to Alexa or to your favorite search engine in a browser. In a similar fashion, you can pose a question to Textract to extract specific pieces of information from an underlying document, image, or PDF. Now, the reason this is a big deal for customers is that not only is this type of extraction paradigm very flexible and intuitive, but it also improves the accuracy and quality of the extraction on some of the most challenging documents that have historically been notoriously difficult to automate, such as the ones I gave examples of earlier, like pay stubs, insurance cards, loan applications. And so, in the end, what queries does is it opens up the possibility for customers to achieve much higher levels of automation, which in turn means more efficient business processes. Their end customers who are able to get service faster, and in some cases even a happier workforce that is freed up from the tedious chore of scanning documents so that they can focus on higher value tasks such as analysis and decision making.
I mean, that's super interesting. And when we think about natural language processing and extracting text, from an image or from a text, without having to know without having a background from machine learning, it's amazing, right? So that means that anyone can get started with it, right? No one, we don't expect the users to have some background around machine learning or deep learning. for that matter. So you mentioned natural language question. So can you just give a little bit, little bit more about that and talk about, how customer can leverage all these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, customers can frame their queries in natural language format, and the whole purpose here is they're designed to be as intuitive as going into a browser, going into your favorite search engine, and typing a question in the text box. Like it's as simple as that. So, for example, I can submit a scanned image of a vaccination card. We all know we're carrying some of these around with us. So I can scan that image from my phone and ask a question: What is the date when my booster shot was administered, for example? And Textract will find the right answer. Alternatively, I can also ask questions such as what is the borrower's social security number on a loan application? Or again, I can ask what is the year-to-date earnings on a pay stub? So of course, if customers need additional guidance, we have a starter list of queries for the most common available document types. They can certainly find that on our documentation page. But instead of telling you, why don't I actually show you the queries and how they work in real time through a live demo if you're up for it?
Yeah, so I think
Sounds good.
that's the most exciting part. I think seeing is believing, and when we see this in action, I think it's a different ballgame altogether.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So what I have in front of me is the Textract console page. So I'm just going to say try Amazon Textract. And the first example we'll actually walk through is a vaccination card, which I alluded to earlier. So what you'll see is, Textract today already supports the capability to extract raw text, which is what you see on the output here, right? So on the left-hand side, you see the document. On the right-hand side, you see the raw text. Now that's a great start, right? Because this is an image, but as it turns out, the information is not easily consumable by customers, right? For example, if I want to figure out what's the second dose of the vaccine, it's very hard for me to look at this. Now, what I can do is, however, I can look at the forms output. And so wherever Textract finds, explicitly labeled field names and values, such as first name, last name, date of birth that are explicitly marked on the document, you can see that I can already see that information here, right? I can see the first name, the last name. Textract is automatically not just extracting text in this case, but also applying the relationships it finds based on the document structure. Similarly, you'll notice that there's a table in the document. So again, it's able to extract the entire document. There's columns as you would expect them: vaccine, product name, manufacturer, all the way to healthcare professional. And then there are all the rows here. But I'll actually pause here and play a quick game of spot the irregularity and see if you guys can see anything, weird or different about this document that could pose potential problems to customers.
Yeah, let's do that. Um, well, I think I found one for the first dose vaccine. The manufacturer name Pfizer and the lot number AA1234 are presented in the reverse order compared to the expected structure of the table. So,
Very good. Yeah, you got it.
okay.
That's definitely one of the discrepancies. And I can speak to the other one. So the other thing you'll notice is that in the second dose, it's actually a sticker. And the issue with that sticker is, what should have happened is that the date column should have been in the date column. CVS, which is the clinic site, should have been in, the rightmost column. But as you'll see, like even though this extraction from a table is accurate, if a customer now wants to extract what is the healthcare professional side, it's very hard. Well, it's these exact kinds of real world, challenges that we see with documents is why we build queries. So now if I go to the queries tab, I can, for example, ask a question, what is the patient name? What is the lot number? Again, I can type, any kind of a natural language question. So going back to the problem statement I alluded to earlier, right? Like if I want to figure out, what is the manufacturer for the first dose, which as you rightly pointed out, Seema, the order was reversed. I can basically go ahead and type this or choose this. I can submit the query, and what you'll see is Textract is able to easily disambiguate this information and correctly extract Pfizer as the manufacturer, even though it's presented in the wrong order in the actual document, which is cool because that's really what customers are looking for.
This
Another
is really
example.
cool.
Oh, sorry, please go ahead.
I said this is really cool. I mean, you still get the right answer without having to navigate specifically in the table, which is reversed otherwise.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. So now let's talk about the other challenge that we saw, which is with the sticker, right? So again, if I'm a customer, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to extract the lot number for the second dose or the date for the second dose because that information is hard to extract. It's in the wrong column. So what I can do with queries is I can basically specify the query that I want and the data point that I want through it, go ahead and submit the query, and lo and behold, it's actually able to find the date correctly, even though geometrically the label basically destroys the geometry of the table. And similarly, I can go ahead and say, what is the clinic side of the second dose? And if all goes well, it should be returning CVS. So let's see if it's able to do that. And sure enough, it is able to find CVS correctly, which again helps customers get to the data points that they're actually looking for without worrying about how the information is presented in the document.
Yeah, I think I mean that's plenty of work that the Textract is doing, under the hood, right, Rahul?
Yep, absolutely. Now you might ask me like, hey, the document says this is the clinic side, but what if I wanted to phrase my question differently? Like, what if I wanted to say, who is the healthcare provider for the second dose, right? Because it's a natural language query. And so we'll actually go ahead and type that question here, and you'll see that, again, Textract is able to return, the CVS, even though, again, there's no explicit key that says healthcare provider for the second dose. And again, just for demo purposes, we have a list of canned queries. The whole point is you can ask any set of open-ended questions. So I'll actually go ahead and type a question that's not in the dropdown, which is, what type of a document is this? And I'm going to go ahead and submit the query here. And let's see what Textract comes back. Well, correctly, it was able to extract the title of the document as the most appropriate answer for the question that I posed. So with that, now let's jump ahead and look at a slightly different example. So we looked a lot at the vaccination card example. Let's look at the loan application example. So let me actually zoom in here because this is a little bit of a dense document. So let's see here. So the thing I want to point out with this document, which again, so you'll notice it's very dense, and you'll also notice that the way the information is organized is there's a borrower section on the left-hand side, and then there's a co-borrower section. But the issue is that in the way the information is organized, both the key name that has the borrower social security number is called social security number, which is identical to how the information is represented on the co-borrower side, right? Like the social security number. So today with forms, again, I can basically extract these values, accurately. But what you'll find is I get a key called social security number, but I actually don't know as a customer whether this belongs to the borrower or the co-borrower, right? Same thing for other fields like home phone number as an example. And so with queries, I can basically, again, go type the question, which is what is the borrower's social security number as an example. So I'm going to go ahead and type it right here. And you'll see that queries is able to, again, extract the correct social security number for the borrower. I could have also, by the way, done, what is the borrower's SSN? Because again, there are many ways of referencing this label, right? Customers typically think of SSN as an abbreviation. So even though on the form itself, the label value is social security number, Textract is still able to extract the correct value, even though it doesn't quite match up with what how it's presented in the document.
So it's amazing, right? So it's not only extracting the information, but also it is able to have relationship between different entities within the document. It's not like it's just finding it wherever SSN is there and fetching the data, but it is also relating it to the parent entity. So like applicant or borrower or whosoever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's happening here, Suman, is we're actually looking at the visual layout of the document, right? So, and that's what you need to do, right? Because you need
Yeah.
to understand that there's a hierarchy embedded in the document. And so we're actually looking at that. We're looking at the customer's intent, and then we're finding, using machine learning and deep learning, the most optimal answer for that query, essentially. All right. Do we have
Yeah.
time for another example?
Yeah, I think go ahead. I think that these are very very interesting because I remember that to do this kind of task even few years back, it was a lot of manual effort and a lot of skill sets that people need to know, right? So it's amazing that what we are seeing today, we might take it for granted, but it's amazing that we can get started with this so quickly and solve some serious problems.
Absolutely. No, this is definitely a big win for customers. So now let's actually look at a slightly different example. So this is a pay stub, which again, customers tell us is notoriously hard to automate. And so you'll see that, again, without having to parse through tables or trying to understand the document structure, I can just pose a question that says, what's the YTD gross pay? Again, Textract is, clever enough to figure out that YTD stands for year to date, and it's able to find, the information from, again, just the scanned image of a pay stub. But I can also ask questions such as, what is the employee address, right? And what you'll see is that it's actually able to extract this information, accurately, even though there's no explicit label that says address. Furthermore, you'll notice that there are actually two addresses on this document. There's the employee's address, and then there's the company address. And so, even though there's no explicit mention of the what type of an address it is, I can go ahead and query the employee address, and then I can go ahead and query the employer's address as well, and Textract is able to extract that. So that then concludes the demo we had that I wanted to show you in response to the question you had asked earlier, Saman.
Well, I find this super interesting, especially all the manual effort can so easily now, there are a lot of error happens when people try to figure things out manually, read a document, every document may be different. So it kind of solves a very big scale problem on that context. And it's very easy for a user to absorb the knowledge and absorb the information that is needed there. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah. I have one question for you. So, like you mentioned, this is an improvement, the queries. Can you tell us more about why the team consider queries to be an improvement on a as a traditional solution, like an OCR?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start by saying there's no better way to experience queries than to try it firsthand using the demo I showed earlier. And again, I encourage
Mm-hmm.
customers to go ahead and do that and try out with all types of forms so that they can test drive and get their queries experience. Having said that, the reason we consider the queries feature to be a groundbreaking innovation and a significant improvement over legacy OCR is for a few different reasons. Number one, it lets customers ask natural language questions to precisely specify the data points they want to extract in a very natural and intuitive manner, right? So you saw that I was able to ask Textract what is the year to date earnings on a pay stub, even though the document had a very busy and complex layout. And Textract was able to take this user or customer intent, what we call task guidance, and use it to hone it on the best possible answer. Now, behind the scenes, there are other unique innovations at play, specifically the fact that queries is leveraging what we call visual and spatial cues. In other words, it's trying to understand the geometry of the document, where the information is present, and what that information is. And then it's actually combining it with language based learning models to understand the semantical meaning of the text as well, which is why, for example, it's able to extract things like implied elements because it's looking at the structure, it's looking at the semantical meaning, and in combination, these can address some of the long-standing data extraction challenges that have really perplexed legacy OCR solutions. The second point is, and as a direct result of the innovations I mentioned, customers don't have to worry about variations in how data is presented, right? So I could say year to date or YTD earnings as I was trying to grab the data from Paystub, or I could say SSN or social security number. And so the other big deal here is that customers don't have to worry about how that data is presented, whether it's in a table, as a key value pair, ask a question, get the answer.
Excellent. I think yeah, so I think the best part that, to me is you don't need to have any machine learning expertise to do any of these custom queries. So before we wrap up, Rahul, would you like to share that how our users can or the developers can make use of this service or any reference to get started with?
Yep, that's right, Suman. So customers don't need any ML expertise and they don't have to train any custom models to use queries. All they need to do is do a low-code integration with our existing API, which many of our customers are already familiar with, called Analyze Document, which is used for forms and tables extraction that we saw just a few minutes ago. And again, customers can obviously do a quick test drive of the queries feature using the AWS console. What I would like to point out to our viewers is, queries is already pre-trained on a large number of structured, semi-structured, and unstructured documents, and is designed to work out of the box on a long tail of documents. One more thing, Suman, in practice, we and customers who have been previewing this feature in beta have seen queries perform really well, even on those document types that we haven't explicitly used to train the underlying model, which means customers should expect to see, high quality results on all sorts of documents. So that would be sort of my guidance to customers.
Excellent. So to get started, the customer can, they can go to our AWS console and get started with that.
That's correct. They can start in the console, and then we offer obviously APIs because we understand customers want to be able to integrate this capability into their existing business process workflows.